Greetings, everyone. Today is the 31st of October 2022. We are saying goodbye to October. Tomorrow, we're welcoming November. November is an interesting month in the African tradition. That is to say, in the Shona culture, to be specific. You will recall some years back when the late Zimbabwean Prime Minister paid Lobola on the month of November. He came under condemnation that he had paid Lobola during the second month, which according to Shona tradition, it is not done. So I want to borrow, for the purposes of this video, from Sekuru Thomas Mukunguta, who wrote an article for the Sunday Mail that was on the 14th of November 2014. He wrote an interesting article. So when I was doing some research on the second month of November, what it means, I then came across this article. So this video will draw most of the notes from that article that he wrote in 2014. Unfortunately, I couldn't contact Sekuru Thomas Mukunguta. I'm not even sure whether he's alive, but his work is recorded by Sunday Mail of the 14th of November 2014. So you might want to Google that article and read it for yourself. He starts by saying, just like in the Bible, that after creating the world over 6 days, you remember, it's recorded in the Bible, in the book of Genesis, that God created the world. He worked for both heaven and earth. He worked for 6 days, but on the seventh day, he rested. I'm not about to talk about whether you believe in the Bible and what the Bible says or not. That's not the purpose of the video. But the purpose of the video, as I'm saying, is to speak to or to speak about the Shona culture and tradition during the month of November. So he says, that is Guru Thomas Mukunguta, that just like God created the earth and heaven for 6 days, he rested on the seventh day. And the local spiritual realm, in the spiritual realm, within the month of November, amongst the Shona people, is the second. They call it, it actually rests. They say the local spiritual realm also rests during the month of November. They say in Shona it is known Mbudzi or Isinyikaba in Ndebele. It's my first time to hear the word Usinyikaba in Isindebele. I'm Ndebele, but I've never heard of this word. But we learn every day. So Sekuru Thomas says, during the month of November, anything or everything that links to spiritual and ancestral world of Zimbabwe tradition temporarily ceases to function. You remember, as I've said, what happened to the late Prime Minister Morgan Tsvangirai. He says cultural ceremonies such as Imbiras, Kuroba, Mukuba, or even traditional marriage rites, Kurora, are regarded as taboos during this month. I'm not sure if you believe in African spiritualism. As I wrote, I think I wrote on my Facebook page that it appears, judging from what I see in the streets of Johannesburg, I walk often in the streets in the streets of Johannesburg. You realize that there's some kind of reconnection with African spiritualism. And there are churches that have broken from the evangelical or prophetic churches, as we have known them over there as Christian churches, so to speak. And you see there's some retracing of roots in terms of African spiritualism. So I was then fascinated to say, this is what we always now see in the streets of Johannesburg, and I hope is happening in a number of cities or societies. So hence I to try to understand in the African spiritualism the significance of November, as we're entering November tomorrow, and what November means. So in Shona culture, according to our Sekuru, spirit mediums, Maswikiro, use the spirit of the departed to help the functioning and well-being of the society. That also applies to spirits manifesting in traditional healers, Mudzimu, Inobuda, Banyanga. So it basically says that because the traditional healers connect to the spiritual world in the spiritual realm, but in the month of November, spirit mediums will be resting. Then in the article that I'm referring you to, they then use their knowledge of medicine. He says they do not stop helping those that are looking for their services. Maybe if you are ill, say if you have a headache, they will give you mushonga or a medicine for the head. But they will not then connect to be guided by the spirit medium, because they are resting. And it continues, which is of course it's an interesting thing, which I'm trying to pay attention to as we enter the month of November, to understand this reconnection, as other people call it, reconnection, going back to their African roots. Whether I believe in the spiritualism or not, that's not for discussion, but it's important that we look into this. It says, now during this period, that is the period of November, spirit mediums, traditional healers, and all those who help the society via the spiritual realm tend to their knowledge, as I have already explained, of knowing the herbs, mishonga, to prescribe healing potions or mechanisms for healing, as kuswikirwa or kusutwa or traditional healers courts, will be completely out of the picture. You also know that in the African tradition, there is a specific day set out during the week, a day where you do not tend the soil. The day it depends on one place to the other. In our village, we grew up knowing that on Wednesday you do not tend the soil, you do not go to the fields. It's declared a spiritual day. Then Wednesday was then declared a day where we take our cake to the deep, at the pen, because you will not be tending the soil, you will not be working in the fields, you are not expected to do any work. But of course, this had nothing to do with the work that we would do in the farms as workers and so forth. It was not observed, but in the true African tradition and in the spiritual realm, Wednesday, in our case, is declared as a spiritual day where you do not work. In some places, I learned that in Lower Gweru, in some places, Thursday is declared as a day. So just like you declare one day in the villages for resting, for not tending the soil, the month of November in the Shona culture is declared as such, that the spirit mediums, or in the spiritual realm, the spirit mediums will be resting. Not that they do not exist, but they will be resting according to Sekuru. Yes, of course, then because other people in the community do not observe this belief in the village, this is where the traditional leaders then play a role. Remember a video that we recorded to say which tackled communists and traditional leaders. This is where your traditional leaders then come in. If you are found to be working on a Wednesday, in our case, you'll be penalized. If in the Shona culture, you then need to do all these things, pay lobola, rora, weddings and so forth, which are forbidden in the month of November, you will be asked to pay a fine to cleanse the spirit. So I want to hear your views. What's your understanding with this African spirituality, taking into account that we are getting into November? You want to get married in the month of November. It is forbidden in the Shona culture. Would you go against the Shona culture? Because in the most cases, when we talk of culture in the African tradition, which I was raising in the video, the communists and traditional leaders, is that we now speak of wearing umqhele, amabheju, like what was happening at the Moses Mapida Stadium, animal skins, carrying our knob carriers, and we say this is our culture. But does it then get to this spiritualism to say in November you can't perform this task because it is a month of November? Please share your views with us. I'm a fan of the Nigerian movies. During my spare time, when I'm not watching football, during my spare time I watch football. But when I'm not watching football, I want to just rest from the international news. I then watch Nigerian movies. Maybe once a week or so, I watch a Nigerian movie. And when you watch the Nigerian movies, they are so into this is spirituality, and they will be talking about abomination. So it might be in Nigeria. What do you make of this African spirituality to an extent that in Zimbabwe, the Shona speaking declare the whole month as a month where the spirit mediums will be resting. You cannot connect with the in the spiritual realm. As I've said, including Nyangas, African healers, and they will not connect with them, but they will be using their knowledge of medicine. But they will not, in the very chama tambo, I don't know what you call in Shona, because they will not be connecting to the spirits as they will be resting. Please share your views. We want to hear your views. Please like this video, and please subscribe to this YouTube channel. Let's have this conversation. Otherwise, have a great day. Goodbye.